Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillahi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, to the 5th Islamic Finance 360 webinar called Broadening the Islamic Finance Knowledge Base, Connecting and Expanding, with our speaker today, Professor Dr. Younes Soualhi from ISRA. More about him shortly, inshallah. My name is Aizuddin. I'll be your host and MC for today. And once again, welcome everyone. Sorry for the slight delay at the beginning. Welcome to those who are joining on Zoom and those who are watching us on Facebook Live right now. Just before I go on to the actual webinar, just a few housekeeping rules, inshallah. First of all, to maintain the audio quality and to minimize any disruptions, we will not allow any participants to any vocal or spoken questions. So if you have any questions, please please enter the questions in the Q&A section in Zoom below. Or if you're watching on Facebook, please comment your questions and our team will read it out, and I'll get through the questions, inshallah, one by one during the Q&A at the end of the session. So how the session works, it's simple. Prof will give a presentation for about 30 to 40 minutes, inshallah. And then we'll go through the questions, and hopefully we'll get to all the questions by the end of the webinar, inshallah. So just a little bit about Prof Younes. Prof is the head of the Islamic Banking Unit at ISRA. He is also the senior researcher at ISRA, and he also teaches at INSAF, the Global University of Islamic Finance in Malaysia. He is the chairman of the Sharia Board of Munich Re-Takaful, the sole Sharia advisor for Kuwait Re-Takaful, and the chairman of Sharia Council of Experts for Salam Takaful in Nigeria. He's also a member of the Sharia Committee in HSBC Amana. He's also a member of Advisory Council for a number of other banks and regulatory bodies. Also a member of the AUF Sharia Subcommittee, mashallah. His profile is quite long. So he has teaching experience for over 23 years. He taught many Islamic finance subjects, including Takaful and Re-Takaful courses and master's and PhD levels. He published many articles and books in Islamic finance and banking, and including again, Takaful and Re-Takaful. So without any further delay, I'll pass the virtual floor on to Prof Younes. Fadla.
Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Thank you very much, Brother Aizuddin, for this nice introduction. And on behalf of ISRA and on my name, I would like to welcome all the participants for this very interactive, and I hope it is going to be a very interactive session. The topic chosen today is quite relevant to Islamic finance. It's about Islamic knowledge, or the knowledge of Islamic finance. This is something very pertinent, very relevant to the development of Islamic finance. Let me first share my slides. Okay. So in the next 25 or half an hour or so, we are going to delve into one of the most important topics related to Islamic finance. It lies at the heart of the development of Islamic finance: knowledge, education, tailored development, human capital development, innovation. The development of Islamic finance since its inception about 40 to 50 years ago has been developed with a corpus of knowledge that has developed from simple concepts to complex concepts and to very advanced and sophisticated concepts recently. If you look into the development of Islamic finance, you can say that there are two major stages. The classical stage and the contemporary stage. The classical stage were actually concepts of Islamic finance, simple concepts applied in simple societies, in simple systems, in simple governance systems, an application or an ecosystem that did not necessitate too much sophistication. But in the 1970s, that has witnessed the launch of the contemporary Islamic finance, that's where sophistication, complexity, and sometimes a little bit of confusion that may happen from here, from one concept to another, we have started witnessing the development of a corpus of knowledge, which we can call it a multidisciplinary corpus of knowledge. It's a multidisciplinary corpus of knowledge that would involve Sharia, legal, finance, economics, and you can simply say it involves all segments of economics, whether we are talking about macroeconomic, microeconomic, whether we're talking about finance in terms of banking, in terms of insurance, in terms of capital market, in terms of legal, in all aspects, whether we are talking about arbitration, whether we are talking about the judiciary, even on the technical side, whether we are talking about risk management, whether we're talking about audit, pricing, underwriting, all aspects of finance, economics, legal, as well as Sharia are incorporated into this corpus of knowledge of Islamic finance. Therefore, we are in front of a multidisciplinary corpus of knowledge that would necessitate a specific methodology of how to deal with it. In this presentation, we are going to see briefly the global landscape of Islamic finance, demand factors for Islamic finance education, why there is a demand for Islamic finance education. And talking about education, we are going also to talk about innovation as well. We are going to focus on Islamic finance knowledge ecosystem. If we are talking about innovation and broadening the scope of Islamic finance knowledge, we need to know what is the ecosystem of Islamic finance knowledge. Then going straight to the core of the topic, which is actually the innovation in Islamic finance education, and we will shed some light on digitalization, the digitalization of Islamic knowledge or the Islamic finance knowledge. We are going to touch on innovation from the aspect of smart partnership between the institutions, and I'm going to focus specifically on the smart partnership between Islamic financial institutions and educational institutions. So to what extent that can trigger innovation and the broadening of knowledge, the knowledge base, and creating a knowledge-based society. Then we will see the way forward. This is, we cannot talk about Islamic finance and innovation Islamic finance without knowing the exact landscape, or let's say the industry of Islamic finance. As you can see here, we are talking about assets that are estimated to hit 3.472 billion USD by the year 2024. As of now, it's about 3 or more than that. Some put the figure lower than that. So we are talking about a growing industry in terms of assets. If you look into the distribution of this industry, so we have about 70% that lies in Islamic banking, 19 in Sukuk, 5 in other Islamic financial institutions, 4% Islamic funds, and 2% Takaful. These are actually where I can say innovation is very much needed. Innovation is needed in Islamic banking, in Sukuk, in Islamic funds, and Takaful. We are going to shed some light on some aspects of innovation in these segments. what has actually achieved these figures? So we have supporting elements such as Islamic financial institutions. There are about 1,447. Of course, you will see all these legislations. There are about 44 countries having legislation. There are more than 1,000 Sharia scholars serving the Islamic finance industry. Then we have 968 Islamic finance education providers. In terms of research, 2,550 as of 2018. Just between 2012 and 2018, there are about 2,550. And speaking of research, many of these researchers actually have innovated new concepts, new products, new process, and new solutions. Actually, this is where innovation lies. Also, research lies at the core of innovation. Then we have about 439 Islamic finance events, conferences, forums, workshops, and so on. And I can say that there's more than that. And in terms of news, we have more than 13,095 news items on Islamic finance. What concerns us in this presentation is this part, is the educational part, the Islamic finance education providers. These are the places where knowledge is produced. I would say the theoretical and many of the practical aspect of knowledge is produced at at educational institutions. This does not mean that the other factors, such as the Islamic financial institutions, doesn't mean that they are not providing knowledge. On the contrary, they are providing valuable data, valuable statistics, valuable knowledge, which universities need them. We are all aware that master's, PhD students will have to rely on those data produced by banks in order to complete the research, or they are supposed to do some interviews or questionnaires, and they would have to contact all these Islamic financial institutions. So there is a kind of a sharing knowledge, and this is where I'm going to tackle later the smart partnership between educational institutions and financial institutions in terms of producing knowledge, adequate, impactful knowledge. Therefore, smart partnership, as I'm going to highlight later, is very much needed, especially at the stage where Islamic finance is going through these days. So this is briefly the landscape of Islamic finance that would give us an idea how fast and big Islamic finance is growing. And also, with a special focus on the big number of of universities that are providing programs in Islamic finance, such as, we don't have to go far, we have INSAFE, we have UIA in university, and all Malaysian universities in one way or the other, they have Islamic finance program. If we total up all these numbers, it go up to more than 1,000 institutions worldwide providing Islamic financial, Islamic finance educational programs or courses, or even at least one course. That shows many things. So why at the end of the day, there is interest in Islamic finance as products and Islamic finance as an educational corpus? Why there is this demand? And that would lead us to the second slide on the demand factors for Islamic finance education. Why people want to get Islamic financial education or Islamic finance education. Let's always bear in mind that innovation in Islamic finance starts from education. Without proper systematic flow of information, structuring of information, the methodology, I would say, the universities teach methodology. In order to innovate, you need to know how to innovate. So the process of innovation is mainly learned at educational institutions. Therefore, we have to talk about the demand for Islamic finance education. For example, high awareness. Now there is more on high awareness of Islamic finance. So people need to know more, actually, especially when we see this growth of Islamic finance in terms of institutions, in terms of legislations. As we have seen, there are 44 countries having legislations in Islamic finance. Assets is growing at double-digit growth. And we have non-Muslim countries have shown great interest in Islamic finance. That would trigger knowing this. I mean, that would trigger the establishment of universities, courses, training programs, and that is the beginning of knowledge. This is how knowledge begins. It starts with an interest, start with the value proposition itself must be accepted, must be promoted. So that's why there are even some countries which have not launched Islamic finance industry, but yet they have established programs in Islamic finance. There are even non-Muslim countries such as France. France has a special university that has launched a program in Islamic finance. University of Dauphine, for example, in Paris, they have launched a master's program, even though they don't have any legislation or any ecosystem for Islamic finance, but they want to know, they want to produce actually, and they want to get ready in case that particular industry is launched in France. In the UK, we don't have to talk about Birmingham University, Oxford, and many universities that have launched Islamic finance programs, or at least courses. Therefore, there is a high awareness from the regulators, from, I would say, the central bankers, from the legislators in the parliaments. There is an awareness, and that's why we need to exploit this. Secondly, we don't forget that the Muslim population is growing very fast. So we have estimation of Muslims are supposed to reach about 2.2 billion. And that is the main driver for the adoption of Islamic finance, because by default, Muslims are supposed to seek for Islamic finance solutions. And that would mean they have to know it, they have to specialize in it, they have to be more aware of it. And that would mean we need to have programs and so on. Another demand factor would be many countries have seen in Islamic finance as an alternative, but some have seen it as a supporting industry. Alternative means they have to change the financial landscape, or they have to include it in a dual banking system, or in a dual takaful system, or in a dual capital market system. Most of the countries have adopted the dual system, whereby you have conventional and Islamic in the same time. That dual system triggers research. Number one, triggers research interest. It triggers a kind of knowledge. We need to know how to do that, how to integrate, how to put them into a dual system, and what are the things that have to be harmonized, and what are the things that have to remain separated. Then you have the whole the whole system in front of you. Each thing actually demands some kind of innovation in order to have the two systems working in parallel without causing any disruption to the financial system, to the monetary system, and to the financial stability of the whole country, and of course to the whole economy. It is not easy to launch a dual system and at the same time you maintain your financial stability, you maintain a robust monetary policy, you maintain a good economic growth, and you maintain a harmony between the Islamic and the conventional, even though some countries are trying to make the Islamic more than the conventional as a target. Then we have another driver why innovation is actually demanded. That's because many believe that the conventional financial system has failed. So the conventional financial system, which is based on usury, which is based on riba, actually has failed to achieve certain macro and microeconomic goals, such as income distribution, fair and just wealth distribution, fair and just income distribution. So that's why we have all these troubles in the economic world. So we have crisis, and we are always struggling with the same patterns of the economic crisis. So you have countries dominating in this globalized world. We are always feeling the pain, actually. So whatever happens, whether the USD is going up or down, so the third world is always suffering, actually. That's why in this globalized world, solutions have to be introduced. This is to say that in the 2008 crisis, many Western countries have called for the exploration of Islamic finance, and this is now a basic knowledge to everybody. So for them actually to explore the possibility for Islamic finance to solve their problems, that would need innovation. They have to integrate the Islamic financial system into their own system. They have to harmonize certain Sharia concepts with their own legal framework. And that would mean also integrating all this into their IT system, the information technology system, in a way that will not disrupt their their financial system. So all this, to them, need innovation. They have to innovate in the legal, in the IT system, in the harmonization, and in the incorporation of Islamic concepts into their own Western culture, Western legal system, and so on. So innovation is triggered sometimes simply by adopting the Islamic financial system. Then you have to be innovative. So this would mean that we need people to do that. We need people to do that. Therefore, one of the triggers also of innovation, I don't have to say that there is a need for it. This is something very, very understood. So there is a need for it. Innovation is a lifelong process. It will never end. So the moment you innovate, you perish, because you will be passed by others. That's why Islamic finance today has to keep itself abreast, have to be really updated, have to find solutions, how to find itself in this high-tech financial system. And here we are talking about financial technology, the fintech. And the fintech itself, as I'm going to explain later, requires a lot of innovation from the side of Islamic finance. We need actually innovation because products are getting more complex. Because you are talking about a classical concepts such as murabaha, such as mudaraba, such as ijara, and you're trying to apply it in a complex world, whereby the concept of profit and loss is not as the same as the profit and loss in the Islamic financial transactions. The concept of risk itself, whether it can be shared or transferred, is different from Islamic to conventional. The issue of the role of the governance, the governance system, the governance framework, also is a bit different. Therefore, there is complexity, and that complexity requires innovation, and innovation requires research clusters, instruments, sponsorship, research grants. It requires a lot of things. So complexity of the product is one of the drivers of innovation. Then you have local and international demand. as I have just explained, there is a demand now either to expand the financial sector. So you have conventional, now you want to add Islamic. You want to add it either to to cater for the demand of sub-segments in your society, or you are seeing it as a solution for certain issues you are facing. For example, in some countries, they have launched Islamic finance in order to attract deposits, because people are not putting the money into the banks. They don't want to put their money into conventional banks because it is based on riba. So the solution is to open Islamic banks or open Islamic windows so that people can deposit their money. And as we all know, deposit constitute a major revenue, a major source of money for the bank in terms of allocation, in terms of source, and banks cannot work without these deposits, basically. So some have seen in Islamic finance as a solution. And there is another, and lastly, the dynamic needs of the market. The dynamic needs of the market, because the market is changing, basically. We are moving from, I would say, simple, advanced market to a more sophisticated and complex market. And now we are entering into the fintech era, and that would mean a lot of sophistication of the systems, of the procedures, of the processes, and that will have an impact on cost, on profit, on human capital, employment, and also that would also mean innovation as well, because any fintech solution is an innovation, and that would advance the Islamic finance one step ahead. So because the market is changing and there is dynamicity, innovation is required. So these are the main drivers of innovation in Islamic finance, basically. Islamic finance knowledge, this is just a brief information on what is the status quo of Islamic finance so far. According to the ICD report 2019 and some other reports, we have this number of educational providers or education providers as of 2018. We have 1968. 371 would provide degree in Islamic finance, bachelor degree, bachelor, master's, and PhD. Then you have 444 course only providers. They only provide a course. And you have 152 qualification providers. They give qualification. Somehow, according to this report, so there are there are few countries that take the lead as of now. So Indonesia seems to be taking the lead in terms of the number of education providers. The United Kingdom comes at the second by 72, either a degree or a course or a qualification provider. Malaysia, according to this report, comes in the third place by having 62 education providers, education providers. Then you have United Arab Emirates, 49, and you have Pakistan, 41. This is in terms of the number of institutions. In terms of degree, the countries by number of Islamic finance degree providers, the degree alone. So you have here, Indonesia also takes the lead by having 186 degree. Malaysia comes second, 39, United Kingdom, 24, Pakistan, 18, United Arab Emirates, 12. And talking about degrees, so these are the programs that is supposed to provide the person who would innovate in Islamic finance. because he would have taken a number of core courses, elective courses. There are core courses, there are elective courses. He would have to undergo some internship in one of the institutions. He will have to produce a master's or a PhD thesis. So this journey is supposed to produce for us someone who can innovate a concept, a product, a solution, an application. Then he will be more qualified actually for this innovation journey. But again, as I'm going to mention later, education institutions are just one leg. There are many legs actually that would lead to innovation. Educational institutions are widely perceived by industry players as very much concerned with theory. I'm not sure to what extent this claim is true. I mean, industry players, I mean, bankers, actuaries, risk managers, those who have been involved in industry, even though many of them have graduated from universities and educational institutions, but after spending a few years in the industry, they feel like universities teach theory. They don't teach practice. Or if they do it in the wrong way or not in the adequate way. That's why you can hear from time to time in conferences that, oh, this is theory. Oh, this is just theoretical. It is not practical. This has to be rectified in my view. This is a misperception. Universities do not teach only theory. They teach theory and practice, but there is a lack. There's a lack in few things I'm going to mention later. There is a lack, there is something that has to be rectified, which I'm going to address in my next slides. But it is wrong to perceive universities with all this manpower and budget, curriculum, the utilization of contemporary curriculum development processes. After all this, universities are not supposed to produce only theory. They are supposed to produce theory and practice. I mean, practical aspects as well. But we will see later that there is a lack in some aspects. So education in terms of teaching is handled by this. The second important leg is research. And research is where innovation lies in universities. So as of now, I mean, the period between 2018, there are 2,550 research papers which have been produced. And speaking of research, of course, this year we have witnessed some institutions that have led in research. So I think you are all aware of IRTI that has been awarded the best research institutions by the IFN, followed by ISRA and followed by other institutions as well. This noble competition between these great research institutions in the world is one of the reasons of innovation, is one of the triggers of innovation. So competition, I mean, fair competition is one of the reasons actually why we have seen some innovations here and there. And not only that, I mean, these institutions sometimes are cooperating. So cooperation, competition, fair competition are the instruments of innovation, right? So if you want to broaden innovation of Islamic knowledge, as I'm going to mention later, we have to enhance partnership, smart partnership, and smart cooperation, as well as fair competition between the educational institutions, even among the Islamic financial institutions. I'm trying to summarize because, okay. Now, all these Islamic financial, all these educational universities or education programs and all this research that has been produced is something very positive we have to be proud of, because there is a big difference between now and 30 years ago, where you can hardly find a university having a training program or an Islamic economics program and so on. Now we have to appreciate what we have, what is already produced. Alhamdulillah, all these researchers, all these textbooks have contributed greatly to the development of Islamic finance knowledge. And IRTI, for example, ISRA have produced a number of textbooks, a number of researches, which are now used by the industry as the main reference, in universities. Students are using them, researchers are using them. They are of good and high quality. This is not to promote ISRA or IRTI, but this is just to describe the type of research which has been done. However, the slide in front of you is an assessment by three important what we call institutions that have assessed Islamic finance education in few years. For example, ICD, the ICD, which is an affiliate of the Islamic Development Bank, IDB. In 2014, the ICD believes that Islamic finance program lacks specialization. So they're trying to say that they are general and they lack specialization. We have seen a tremendous development of education programs from 2014 until now, but we still feel like many universities offer Islamic finance in general, or Islamic economics in general. But within the Islamic finance, there are fields, there are segments. For example, Islamic banking. Islamic banking should be a specialization by itself. Takaful should be a specialization by itself. Islamic capital market should be a specialization by itself. Waqf should be a specialization by itself. So this is what is needed now. We need to go more focused. We need to come up with more specialized programs. ComSec, which is also an affiliate of the IDB, an affiliate of the Islamic Cooperation Conference, Islamic Cooperation, the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. In 2013, they are of the view that Islamic finance programs are not up to date. Islamic finance institutions must be involved in designing Islamic finance programs. They are of the view that there should be a synergy between Islamic finance educational institutions and Islamic financial institutions. So a synergy between educational experts or education experts and finance experts. FAA 2015, this is the accreditation agency. They are of the view that there is a lack of standardization of Islamic finance programs. There is also a lack of international accreditation. So according to them, we are yet to reach this level where Islamic finance programs are accredited by international agencies. Also, they are of the view that we need to standardize these programs in order to develop a robust Islamic finance industry. These remarks are very useful, very important, and that shows what is lacking actually. Because when we say this, these have an impact on innovation. So if you are innovating in Malaysia, your solution is only in Malaysia. It cannot be extended to Indonesia or any other country. So we need to think globally. We have to think international. Yes, there are some specificities for each country, some specific regulations, even some madhab regulations, some fiqh, what we call restrictions. But this Islamic finance is seen as one corpus, as one industry. We are talking about an Islamic finance, one Islamic finance. It doesn't have to be the same in every country, but it has to be more international, more standardized than fragmented. Otherwise, ultimately, if we are aiming to present this Islamic finance as an alternative to conventional finance globally, then this global world will not accept us. They will tell us, hey, you have too many Islamic finance versions, one in Indonesia, one in Malaysia, one in here and there. So there is a need of standardization. And that would mean we have to innovate solutions. We have to innovate solutions so that we can standardize this internationally. For example, one of the solutions, these cross-border sukuk that are structured and traded in 2 countries. This is at least at a regional level. So we have this type of, the issue of standardizing the Sharia standards or the accounting standard, Islamic accounting standards. So we are in need of standardizing to some extent without ignoring the specificities of each country, of course. So this would mean, according to IMFC 2014, we are in need of 1 million experts by 2020. So we are in 2020. I don't have the exact figures, how many we have covered out of this 1 million. I think we are still in need. Why? Because the Islamic finance industry is growing, but the number of experts, human resources, who are actually covering this growth, it doesn't match. It's not growing in tandem. This is one of the issues, actually. The more Islamic finance grow, the more challenging it becomes, and the more innovation is needed. Not only that, there are there are other challenges. Fintech, for example, is posing a big challenge to classical markets and modern markets. So we need to catch the pace of growth in the IT system, in the fintech. We also need to catch the growth and also to deal with the economic landscape, because it's changing globally. We need also Islamic finance experts in this area. Islamic capital market, 88%. Of this 1 million, we need about 88%. 50% are needed in Islamic banking. Sorry, the first figure has to be rectified. And 63 are needed in takaful. So there is a big need in all these 3 markets. This is according to ComSec report 2013. Qualification of human capital in Islamic finance. So if you are to innovate, we need to have good human capital that would be responsive to the market needs. Responsive to the market needs, meaning the moment there is any change in the market, they are quickly responding to that. Now we have fintech as a challenge. We have smart contract. We have artificial intelligence. We have this cryptocurrency, even though it's not made legal tender yet in many countries, but it is posing a challenge because there is a demand by many investors to invest in this cryptocurrency. Then we need human capital to innovate in how to respond so that we will not lag behind. Second, human capital that is innovative in nature, in terms of skills. Then multidiscipline background. The human capital which is innovative today, this is supposed to be lighter than this, but what is written here is multidiscipline background, which means the one who would innovate should have more than one background, more than one specialization. Actually, all of them can innovate to some extent. But since an Islamic financial product contains elements of Sharia, elements of finance, elements of legal, elements of international, I would say, standards, so all these people have to have to gather their efforts in order to produce something, produce a product. That's why nowadays Islamic banks, when they come up with a product, it has to go from one department to another. It has to go from the product development team. After that, it goes to risk management. After that, it goes to pricing. After that, it goes to Sharia department. After that, it goes to internal control, then to the Sharia committee. So there are various layers that a product has to go through. And in each layer, there is a new idea, a new amendment, a new addition, a new omission until the product is finally ready. What does that mean? That means that product, in order to be innovative, multi-disciplines must be there. Multi-approach must be there. So our universities have to produce students who have Sharia background, legal background, finance background, international finance background, waqf background, zakat background, so that when they go to the market, they have that foundation already. But that is not enough, as I'm going to mention later. So speaking of innovation, as far as Islamic knowledge is concerned, we are to look into the curriculum. And here we are talking about textbooks. We are talking about books that produce knowledge, which is the main function of university. So innovation has to do a lot with curriculum. And this would also include research as well. Research has to be applied, has to deal with current issues and so on. Innovation has to do with human capital as well. The type of innovator himself, he needs to be well equipped. As I said, he must have certain backgrounds. Then in terms of resources, that would include libraries, the IT system, database, and so on. And now we are talking about digital information. So innovation has three major areas: curriculum, human capital, and resources. When it comes to innovation in Islamic finance education, one of the areas is, I would say, one of the focus area is digitalization. And digitalization of Islamic finance knowledge would mean you need to produce the adequate information. You need to make it convenient. You need to make it impactful, and you need to make it subject to assessment and review so that you can develop it further in the future. So this is what we mean by digitalization. And the two areas that we can explore and innovate in is the fintech solutions. Fintech solutions now, it involves blockchain, it involves artificial intelligence, it involves analysis of big data, and it involves Internet of Things. So each and every aspect, and also it involves smart contracts. Therefore, we are in need of innovating in these particular areas, how to incorporate. Now, innovation in fintech is how to incorporate smart contract, for example, in Islamic finance products. Can we have, I mean, to what extent we can employ blockchain in Islamic finance, in takaful, Islamic capital market. So this is why innovation is needed. Second layer or second phase is the database, and databases are actually resourceful databases that will produce digital information in terms of research, in terms of books, in terms of infographics, in terms of latest news and so on. And we have here a number of databases in the market. I don't have to mention ISRA. ISRA is one of the IFICR, actually the IFICR one is one of the famous now, one of the most effective database available in the market. Then you have IRT platform, then you have Bloomberg, then you have Ernst and Young, who provide empirical data for Islamic finance. Then you have many digital platforms. Then you have Islamic, what we call Islamic markets that provides audio visual and so on. And now The innovation is going digital, the audiovisual aspect. This is lacking to a great extent. Islamic finance needs to be presented in a more attractive, way, in an audiovisual. Plus, it needs to be made easy, convenient, and people now can follow a lecture while driving, for example. They can listen to a new product while waiting for the bus because they're using the internet, they're using the audiovisual. And it looks like there is also competition. The competition in this, and alhamdulillah, this is a fair competition, but this is the way forward actually, digitalization, fintech, and so on. So for this digitalization, and even for other, we need some, let me go to this. Innovation, I said innovation is of two types. One is digitalization. The other one is smart partnership. Smart partnership is actually partnership between Islamic financial institutions and educational institutions. For example, an Islamic university, a university and a bank. There should be a smart partnership whereby this partnership would allow for this pyramid to be there. So there should be publication of research, training, university provide training, or the institution provides training to the students. There should be database access, such as the electronic library should be accessible to the bankers, or some statistics provided by the bankers should be provided to the students and the staff. There should be internship whereby students do internship in the Islamic banks. Services, scholarship should be provided by by institutions to students to complete their masters and PhD. And at the end of the day, all these factors will contribute to a product development. At the end of the day, there is a product which lies at the peak of this. This is the pyramid that, in my view, should be there in order to achieve this smart partnership. But all this needs agents. Agents will be academicians, finance experts, legal experts, the judge or the judiciary system, the arbitrator, Sharia advisor, technical experts, and the BOD or management, and of course, the researcher. Lastly, I would end this by referring to the way forward. The way forward for the knowledge or how to broaden Islamic knowledge, knowledge in Islamic finance, or how to innovate in Islamic finance, in my view, we need quality assurance. We need our education programs and research to be quality. Quality in the sense that they should be impactful. Impactful means they have to solve a problem, produce a new product. For example, talking about the B40 category in Malaysia. This is an occasion for Islamic banks, for takaful companies to come up with the products that will solve the B40 category, those who cannot get financing from banks, or those who cannot get takaful from takaful companies. So how to innovate a product that would help these people get access to finance or to takaful. Then you need to have smart partnership between Islamic, this is the one I was explaining just now. The smart partnership is the way forward. Third, we need to have more specialization in Islamic finance. Now we need to have specialization only in Islamic banking, only in takaful, only in the, probably we need to go into specialization in product development, specialization in audit, specialization in accounting, only Islamic accounting, specialization in even in social finance, waqaf, zakat, sadaqah, how to, a student will study 4 years how to materialize social finance in the actual world. And lastly, we need to have internationalization of human capital development, or we need to have a kind of a pool of experts, innovators, who should not only serve localities, they should also serve the international needs. And this, we need a database that would track these experts, these innovators, how we can benefit from them. This is what is lacking in my view. And that would summarize my presentation. Thank you very much, and sorry for taking so long. And I would be very happy to listen to your questions and the comments. Thank you very much. Back to you, Brother Azuddin.
All right, Jazakallah khair, Prof. Younes. Thank you very much for that enlightening, enlightening presentation. Before I get to the questions, I would like to tell everyone joining in. First of all, thank you for joining in. For those of you who joined halfway, welcome to the Islamic Finance 360 webinar called Broadening the Islamic Finance Knowledge Base with ISRA and IFICR. Before we get to the questions, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about IFICR. IFICR is ISRA's knowledge portal that was set up in 2017 and has since garnered a lot of following and attention from industry players, regulators, academicians, lecturers, students, and so on. And we've got something exciting coming soon, coming your way very, very soon, inshallah. And with that, I would like to show you, one second. This is a little bit awkward, but let me see. My apologies, my apologies. Here we go. Right, IFICR is your one-stop Islamic finance and banking knowledge hub where you get access to books, fatwas, and all sorts of videos, courses, all sorts of resources on Islamic finance and banking. And now what's coming to you will be a one-stop center for everything Islamic finance knowledge related on your phone. So the app is coming very soon. Pay attention, subscribe to our newsletter, and visit ifikr.isra.ny. That's ifikr.isra.my. Apologies, a bit of a tongue twister. Okay, so with that, if you want more information on that, go to ifikr.isra.my. With that, now let's get back to the webinar. I've got a number of questions for you, Prof. Prof, you still there?
Yes, I am.
Yes, alhamdulillah. Okay, I've got a number of questions here. So let's see. Number one. First question, how do we integrate what we learn in the university and in the market practices?
Education programs should always be accompanied by a kind of a training or an internship before the graduation. And this has been done by many universities. When I was in UIA, we used to have such a thing. Now in INSEF, we have such a thing. So each program should have a kind of an internship whereby students will be exposed to the actual world of finance, actually. Secondly, their master's and PhD should be guided in such a way that practical issues should be tackled, should be addressed. Yes, theoretical things are very much, I mean, we should not always say that theoretical knowledge is not needed. On the contrary, theoretical knowledge is very, very much needed. Actually, Islamic finance is all based on theoretical knowledge. The concept of murabaha, concept of ijara, concept of risk sharing, concept of all these are theoretical concepts, but they have to be actualized in the actual world. So students, as they choose the topic, they should always find a link between the theory and practice with the guidance of their supervisors. This is achievable. This is not. Students should always leave something called dreams. Many students actually, because it is Islamic, it is always good. There's no doubt about it. But what they want to prove it, when they come to prove it, they cannot prove what they are dreaming. For example, they want to prove that Islamic finance is fair. Okay, there is fairness, there is better than others. But most of the students are actually bogged down in some, I would say, emotions. They're emotional here. They have to prove it. They have to prove that the Islamic product is more fair than a conventional one. And this, it needs a specific methodology, either quantitative or qualitative. Sometimes you need to do empirical study to prove or not to prove something. So how to do that? I would always focus on the methodology. If your methodology is sound and you know how to do that, you know how to apply your methodology, you will always arrive at the accurate and the adequate information. So two things, I summarize my answer. One is to try your best to do some kind of internship. Second, choose a topic which is related to a practical thing. And third, always try to be innovative. One of the mistakes many students do, they replicate past studies, but with some new terms and probably new graphs and new tables. But at the end of the day, it's the same concept, the same. It's just that they are not mentioning from where they get it. So be careful, students, if you are listening to me. Being innovative doesn't mean being innovative in plagiarism. Plagiarism also is innovation. The way you take someone's idea and present it is very innovative. I have seen it myself. And at the end of the day, they will tell you, I have innovated something. No. And to be innovative, you will have to do a very good literature review. You will have to review what has been written, and you have to find what is called the research gap. The research gap is your main contribution. This is innovation. So please don't be influenced by by this. I am the one who said it. I am the first one to say it. No, I've seen many PhD and masters. When I sit in the viva, the student will discover that there are 20 or 30 people have already said what he said. Then he gets surprised. That's because he did not do a good literature review, or he has not been supervised in the proper way. So please, to integrate your theoretical knowledge with the practical one, you need to be trained in the right way. If you are trained in the wrong way, you will always you cannot be innovative at the end of the day.
All right. Thank you, Prof. So in relation to that, then there's another question that asks something similar. So then how can we or how can the university encourage or engage industry experts in the knowledge process or in the classroom for the students? So how can, because just now you mentioned a lot of the teachings in Islamic finance or education in Islamic finance, a lot of it is theory. So how do we instill or teach practical lessons or skills in the classroom, for example?
Okay, there are many ways how to do that. One of the way, of course, as I said, the curriculum must be designed in such a way that it provides both practical and theoretical knowledge, okay? And this has to be, I mean, the lecturer or the supervisor plays a big role here in guiding the student on how to combine theory and practice in the same time. So they will have to get, so this is the role of the lecturer. This is the role of the student, who should not only choose easy topics. And third, there are some smart there are a few slides which I did not actually present that shows the smart partnership between universities and Islamic financial institutions. INSEF, for example, just an example, INSEF has good smart partnership with Maybank, with Pro BSN, with CIMB, and so on. These institutions not only provide sponsorship, but they also share knowledge. They would appoint some fellows from these particular institutions who will come and stay in the university, all right? And he would provide guidance to experts, because this fellow is an expert, financial expert. So he would share his knowledge with the students, with the staff, in a form of forums, in a form of guiding their research and so on. Also, students, by virtue of this smart partnership between INSEF and CIMB, between INSEF and Maybank, Pro BSM, students will go they have done some internship in these institutions. Third, some of the students got scholarship. One of these banks, I don't mention the name, provided 500,000 ringgit scholarship to INSEF students. But the topics that the students should write on basically are topics chosen by the bank itself. So they said, we want research in this particular area, in this risk management, in the accounting, in the Sharia. So they have identified the topics. Students will be engaged, they will get scholarship, and at the same time, they do a practical research. That's why I said smart partnership is one of the innovative ways of how to innovate new ideas and new knowledge in Islamic finance. Students, by being attached to these banks, will have statistics, latest information, latest product processes, even latest, I would say, decisions and resolutions, probably latest statistics. So this is how, this is just a small idea of how we integrate theory and practice via this smart partnership.
All right, thank you, Prof. The next question is, can we really have strong innovation in the market with minor knowledge in Sharia? Because not all of us in the industry specialize in Sharia.
Definitely. Research now is done in a cluster, in a group. As I said before, even though we are in need of someone who has some backgrounds, some multidiscipline training, at the end of the day, what has proven to be effective is the research cluster. A research cluster that comprises academician, legal expert, finance expert, Sharia expert. So by having these 3 or 4 major experts in one group, which we call it research cluster, then we can innovate. We do not expect someone to be expert in Sharia, in finance, in economics, in waqf, in zakah, in everything. That is almost impossible nowadays. Therefore, group research is a solution. Research classes is a solution. It's better also to do, after completing this research, is to test the outcome of the research in the form of a focus group discussion, in the form of a forum, presented in a conference, presented in a forum. Then you will test the finding of your research. Because many things we think we have innovated, but the moment we present it to people, it looks very simple to people. It looks something not really innovative, and we get shocked. Why we get shocked? Because we have not tested our findings. Okay, so to answer the question, research today has to be done in a cluster where the Sharia expert should be a member in the research cluster. Yes.
Right. Thank you, Prof. I think we're running out of time, so I'll get to the last 2 questions, inshallah. With companies like Google and others trying to move beyond mere university degrees, do you think Islamic finance, the Islamic finance industry, especially Islamic fintech, might follow this path as well?
Definitely, I think everybody can see now that Islamic finance industry is trying to catch up, is trying to venture into fintech in terms of exploring smart contracts, blockchain, I would say digitalization in general, yes. But it's very hard actually to assess the achievements so far. I mean, we are still at the beginning. There are many concepts which have been developed. We have seen even some products which have been developed. I know that some banks have already launched some product based on blockchain, but it's very encouraging. But I feel like it's moving slow. It's moving slow as we are yet to see a breakthrough in the fintech, Islamic fintech arena yet. Even though there's a lot of discussion, a lot of forums, and a lot of concepts, whether on the waqaf, whether on the zakah. For example, ISRA has developed a zakat blockchain concepts and platform. Fintura has developed a waqaf blockchain, and some others have developed sukuk based on blockchain, and so on. So HSBC, I know they have developed a letter of credit based on blockchain. That a Sharia compliant letter of credit using blockchain, and so on. So there is some kind of innovation, but of course, it's very small at the moment.
All right, thank you, Prof. The last question from one of our participants on Zoom here. Do you think the Bank Negara Malaysia and other respective authorities should open a window to encourage and fund Islamic financial innovation initiatives?
BNM to finance innovation. I think BNM's role...
BNM or any other respective authorities worldwide.
I mean, authorities depends what kind of authority. If you are talking about Ministry of Higher Education, yes, they can finance. They can provide. I mean, so far we have Ministry of Higher Education grants such as FRGS and so on. These grants are coming from this higher authority, the Ministry of Higher Education, the MOHE, and part of this research is in Islamic finance. This has already been done, actually. We all remember last 3 or 4 years, the Ministry of Higher Education allocated about 300 million ringgit for specific research in Islamic finance, especially on especially on waqaf, actually. We know that the Ministry of Higher Education has minimized the budget for universities about 30%. And in the same time, it has allocated 300 million ringgit for these universities to come up with the new ideas on how to bridge that gap, the gap of 30%. Many universities, and here I can recall UIA, even in CEF, they have developed concepts based on waqaf, sukuk waqaf, in order to initiate funds. That fund will be used actually to bridge this 30% gap. So using sukuk waqaf is an innovation, actually. Even though it's very much similar to what ISRA has developed on the sukuk waqaf, the New Zealand sukuk waqaf, but it shows that the authorities are encouraging research and setting aside budget and grants. BNM, I don't think they have that kind of mandate. They are actually guiding and producing the regulations and the guidelines on how to innovate, but not to provide financing. But if you see in CEF itself, which is under Bank Negara, they are actually providing the educational platform. So BNM is providing 2 wings, the educational platform in the form of INSEF and the research platform, which is ISRA. So BNM is playing a big role here. I'm not doing any promotion, but I'm just mentioning the fact that this is unique in the Muslim world, with the exception of Bahrain. Bahrain did something similar. They established an educational institution, but Malaysia was the pioneer in this, whereby the central bank gets involved in educational educational project as well as research project, and so far is very successful as far as the results are concerned. Wallahu a'lam.
All right, Jazakallah khair, Prof. Younes. With that, ladies and gentlemen, our lovely attendees, thank you all for your attention and your questions. Perhaps I'll give one last, any final points for Prof?
Yeah, I would like to thank the organizers for this very important webinar. I would like to thank the participants and all the questions, the relevant and good questions they have asked, and that shows the interest in this in such topics. And hopefully, the challenges that we are facing, especially in this COVID-19 problem and crisis, I would say, would trigger more innovation on how to deal with the repercussions of such a crisis. Because I forgot to mention that crisis triggers innovation, and hopefully this COVID-19 crisis will trigger more innovations, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you.
With that, Jazakallah khair, before I go, I cannot go without telling you about Islamic Finance 360. If you enjoy webinars like this is actually, in fact, the 5th free webinar that we've done under the Islamic Finance 360 banner over my head here. If you want to join us for future webinars and the e-conferences that we have coming up, which is ISSF 2020 and IFD 2020, the Islamic FinTech Dialogue 2020, please visit if360.isra.ny, right? if360.isra.ny. And for your information as well, the next webinar is actually happening 1 week from now. 1 week from now, called the Sharia compliant e-wallet prospects and challenges. This will feature 5 speakers, which all of them are very notable. Prof. Dr. Ashraf Muhammad Hashim, the CEO of ISRA Consulting, Dr. Marjan Muhammad, senior researcher here at ISRA, Dr. Tuan Badrul Hisham Tuanso, Muhammad Mukhairi Sitam from e-wallet. So you have an industry expert or industry practitioner of e-wallet there coming to share his experience. Also Safiuddin Ahmad Fuad, who is also a researcher at ISRA. So if you want more information and to register for this webinar, visit if360.isra.ny. And with that, Jazakallah khair. Thank you everyone for tuning in. See you at the next webinar, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.